Every single Google ad account I go into has these exact issues. In today's video, I want to talk to you about why your Google ads probably aren't working very well for you, particularly if you're an e-commerce business, but this kind of applies across the board. Every single account I go into has these issues. Most of the time, tracking is okay, but if there's a problem, normally the first thing I always check is tracking. If you're using an automated bidding strategy, so that might be maximize conversion value, target CPA, target ROAS, any of those, they are using Google's conversion tracking that you have set up in the account to optimize using that event. If that event is not working or is not working properly, you're going to have issues with the account because you're telling it, hey, go and find me this, and the metric that it's using is just not working properly. So the problem with doing that is you're really telling it to go and find you something that it doesn't have a clear picture on. And so when I say, is it working properly? Is it actually counting the conversions is the first thing. Is the event actually functional? And sometimes you'll think it's actually not. So you need to be sanity checking across Google Analytics, Google Ads, your Shopify dashboard, WooCommerce, whatever it is that you have, and making sure that the numbers actually stack up. Because if the numbers don't stack up, then the event's probably not working properly. For example, if Google Ads is saying you've done $100,000 in sales and your top level sales are $100,000 or $120,000 and you're advertising in other areas, then obviously it's not working properly. So just a simple sanity check will help you. Now, things like high ROS, triple whale, all of these things, again, these are just lenses, right? So they're giving you different attribution points of view, but you're not using those events to optimize for. So even if you have that software, if you are optimizing for something not working as good as it can be, your best bet is to actually get someone who's a tracking specialist. Even myself, I will use tracking specialists to help set these things up properly. So make sure your tracking is working properly. Aside from the fact you're flying blind and you really don't know how to make decisions, it's just not the right way to be optimizing for because you're literally not giving Google the best chance to do so. The second biggest thing is making changes way too frequently, and I can go into an ad account and know whether or not it's a Google ad buyer managing the account because I see it all the time. People who run and are Google ad specialists run Google ads, they know it inside and out. They're not meta ad buyers. Meta ad buyers will make lots of changes frequently, test different creative, test this, change that. It's just not the way Google ads work. It's about a complete mindset shift into thinking about a different way of running ads. Google is a slow aircraft carrier. It moves very slowly, but once you get it up and running and it's got a bit of momentum, it is consistent, it will bring sales in, day out. You won't have to touch it as often, it won't create as much work. And to be honest, for me, it's a much more pleasurable way to run ads because it's just so much easier. You don't need lots of creative. You don't need to be making changes all the time. You don't need to be testing a million things and just donating money to Meta. Because you got to think about it. Once you're testing things, you're then risking money on things you don't know whether or not they will or won't work. So if it won't work, you've wasted that money. So the more you test, the more you waste. And that's why Google tends to have a lot less waste in my view, because you're just not having to test as much. So you're not having to waste as much money on ads. So big thing I see is too many changes too quickly. And if you don't actually have someone who knows how to run Google ads and it's actually a meta ad buyer, there's nothing wrong with that, but they're not going to run it as well or as efficiently as someone who specializes just in Google. It's just so different. And I come across so many businesses, they've got these phenomenal meta and social media buying teams, and their Google teams are just not great because the SEO people don't quite get Google ads, the meta people don't quite get it. It's just this little niche, and that's why I've stuck to it for so long because it's just so misunderstood. And once you get it right, it will work really well. So less changes, go into the change log. If you're making changes every single day or every second day or anything like that, and your account's not spending huge amounts of money, you're running it wrong. If you're changing creatives and assets and multiple duplicating campaigns, pasting them. If I see someone go into a Google ad account and has duplicated a campaign multiple times or ask me about that, I know they're a meta ad buyer straight away. You don't need to do these things. You can create a new campaign or you can make the campaign changes on the original campaign. It doesn't make a big difference. aside from making too many changes, which kills performance, particularly like budget changes, big changes like that, if you make them too frequently, your results are going to be very poor or suboptimal. And this leads into the next one, which is PMax and brand. These are the next two biggest things. How you deal with these, to me, dictates the success of the ad account. Okay, and the reason I mention them together is they kind of interact with each other. The major problem most people have when they say their Google ads are not incremental, or they're increasing the budget and they're not making any more money top line, or Google's telling them the results are really good and they're just not seeing that. What that tells me most of the time is that all of the spend is going towards brand and very minimal to cold. So we need to segment out brand as best we can, limit our spend on brand, and then also bring in some cold traffic, and then scale more so on the cold traffic than the brand. Because what happens when you scale brand is you just push up the average cost per click of your own brand name, and you really just start competing with yourself. And when you compete with yourself, what happens is you'll spend double, and all will happen is your CPCs might double, or your conversion rate halves, and so you've spent more money, and really you've ended up in the exact same spot. Because unless you're advertising in other areas, the amount of brand you're going to capture with doubling your spend, if you're increasing the spend on a branded campaign or on a PMax, it's just not going to drive any more sales, is it? Because your brand's only going to get searched a certain number of times unless you generate demand from somewhere else, which is Google's not a great demand generation vehicle, like YouTube and demand gen, but not as much as Meta. So you're better off pushing that spend onto another channel that's going to generate demand, versus Google's not so much a demand generating vehicle, right? Because people are already there searching. So it can generate a little bit of demand, but not a huge amount. Like shopping and PMax will a little bit as well. But how you want to segment things out is you want to have your PMax either limiting brand, the amount you come up for, and you do that by how much you spend on a PMax including brand, or you can exclude brand from it. You do want to include some brand there, because if you don't, particularly if you're running this for clients or even for yourself, if you're not coming up for your own brand name, it's not a good look, and it's so cheap to actually do it. And you want to come up for that shopping remarketing. It's a very important part of Google. Hitting that shopping remarketing, making sure you're maximizing your potential there is very important. You will get more customers. You'll feel like it's not worth it, but it is, because if someone's Googling your brand, a competitor's coming up because of broad match, it gets other people to come up for your own brand. What will happen is they will get the sale sometimes for things. If you sell something similar, say you're selling a particular tap, and that tap is very similar, the person buys it, looks exactly the same, they were looking for your brand, they couldn't find it, so they buy it from someone else. It's not great, you're definitely going to lose out. It's a good way to spend money. You do not want to miss out on that. You want to be having some branded PMax or shopping. You can go the pure standard shopping route. I've shown people on this channel a million ways to do this in the correct way, but this is the reasons that you are not getting incremental return on your Google ads. What we're wanting to do is introduce standard shopping or PMax without brand, have a separate campaign that includes brand, and then scale that campaign. The results are going to look poorer, and that's why a lot of people don't do it. The results and return on ad spend and everything will look poorer on that campaign, at least initially. What I find though is eventually it levels out, and it will end up doing really well if you give it the time. It'll need a few months to catch up to the other ones, and sometimes, funnily enough, the return on ad spend can actually be higher on your cold campaigns. And when I mean cold, remove all traces of brand, sub-brand from that campaign. So if you really want your results on your Google ads to improve, make these changes, and I guarantee you they will be better. Thanks so much. See you in the next one.